A little more on that. What's going on at the Human Rights Council? Bar-Yoshafat is an attorney and author of I Flew to Talk About Israel. Ron, thanks very much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
Give me your take on the Human Rights Council as a platform today, in this case, for Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, making some legitimate points there.
Okay, well, first we need to understand that the Human Rights Council is only declarative. So it's okay if they pass resolutions. It's really annoying to me, but it doesn't really have any impact on Israel or in general in any other country. But as you mentioned before, it's very clear that there's a huge bias against Israel. When you have so many resolutions against Israel, and the countries that conduct these resolutions are countries that have zero respect for human rights, you should take this in the right proportions.
Are there truths to what is being said there at the same time? Because we have Palestinian President Abbas, who these days doesn't have too many other options, calling for a two-state solution there. That is something that Israel has always, in the past, been a proponent of.
If the question is having a two-state solution, three-state solution, one-state solution, that's not a question of human rights. That's a question of policies of states. Now, let's just get one thing straight. The #1 violator of human rights of Arabs in Gaza is Arabs in Gaza. Same for Arabs in the PA. So if you want to deal with human rights issues for Arabs in these areas, you need to deal with their leadership. They're the ones who have the least respect for human rights. You don't have freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of assembly. So if you want to deal with that, that's your case. If you're talking about policies, I think President Trump said, look, you guys are the ones who are going to have to make the decision. You're going to have to negotiate and decide. So I don't really see how that is a violation of human rights.
When we see Israel consistently, also with the United Nations, in a way sort of sitting on the sidelines, criticizing what's being said inside, even without being part of the Human Rights Council, if all of what you're saying is true, shouldn't Israel be doing more? Can more be done rather than sitting and criticizing what's being said at the UN?
First of all, I think Israel is doing a good job when they're trying to combat what is happening in the UN. It's a very harsh battle. But again, I think proportions is the right word here, because you have to understand the Human Rights Council is a declarative council. It's not like the Security Council. So basically, I can create an organization and condemn other countries. It doesn't really mean anything. And look, Syria has been condemned, what, 14 times since the Human Rights Council was established. You see that it's not really effective. It's not really doing anything. So I'm not that concerned about it.
Let's jump back to our senior Middle East correspondent, Mohammed Al-Qasim, on the Israel-Gaza border. Mohammed, you speak to Palestinian officials on a near-daily basis. We heard our guest saying this is sort of a declarative space, the Human Rights Council, but for the Palestinian Authority, it seems to be much more than that.
That's correct, Narrate. For the Palestinian Authority, it goes along with their strategy of internationalization of the Palestinian conflict. They think that they've been very successful in gaining enough international support. They were very optimistic and happy with the UN Security Council resolution toward the end of the year. We're talking about Resolution 2334. They were also happy with the Paris conference in relation to the French initiative. They weren't happy with the President Trump approach to the two-state solution or even one-state solution. But they believe if they can gather and garner enough international support for their cause, they can apply enough pressure on not only the Israeli government, but also on the U.S. government, that they can put some sort of an international conference together in hope that they can maybe bring Israel into the table with international player. President Abbas is determined that the international community, the internationalization of the conflict is the way forward, and that's why he spoke today at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, and that's why he is pushing for all the international players. He even asked the international community today, any country that recognizes Israel as a state, he asked them to recognize Palestine as a state in hope that this will bring Israel into the table and maybe persuade the U.S., the new U.S. administration in joining the international community, so to speak.
Mohammed Al-Qasim on the Israel-Gaza border. Thanks very much for that. Ron, briefly, will Israel, now that it has President Trump sort of behind it in a way, ignore these international forums altogether?
So I don't think Israel can ignore it, and I do agree it's a wonderful branding campaign. That's what the PA is doing. It's a branding campaign because there's no connection between human rights and the policies. Hamas that forces 12-year-old girls to marry 40-year-old men, or has on its charter to murder Jews wherever they are, or the PA that sends people to death if they sell their house to a Jew, that's a violation of human rights.
Ron Bar-Yoshafat, unfortunately we have to stop there. Thanks very much for weighing in tonight. Still to come here on Debrief.